Which brings us to a final thought to leave you with. If narcissism, especially in these reported grandiose forms, is fundamentally a defense mechanism, a shield against deep shame or fear of abandonment, how does that change our responsibility as an audience?
Our responsibility?
In how we engage with, or maybe choose not to engage with, individuals who display these kinds of traits so publicly?
That's a heavy question. Does understanding the potential root change how we react to the behavior itself?
Exactly. It's something to think about, that complex dance between the public persona we see and the potential underlying psychological defenses driving. And when you look at public figures, there's always that persona, right? The public face.
Yeah.
Carefully crafted, usually.
What's really going on underneath, what drives some of the things they say or do, it's often way more complex.
Absolutely. And that's what we're diving into today. We're looking at the public persona of Candace Owens.
Right.
Specifically through this lens of malignant narcissism that our source material discussed.
Okay. And just to be clear up front.
Yeah, super important. Our goal isn't, diagnosis. We can't do that. It's really to pull out the key ideas, the characteristics, the reported actions that our sources are presenting.
So you, our listener, can get a quick, thorough grasp of what these sources are actually saying.
Exactly. We're conveying the ideas in the material.
Okay, and the starting point for this, it came from somewhere specific, didn't it?
It did. Our YouTube source traces it back to comments Jordan Peterson made on Joe Rogan's podcast, actually.
Oh, right. He mentioned something about psychopaths co-opting the Maj-Gay movement, and our source says Candace Owens reacted strongly.
How so?
Well, the source claims she took major offense and put out an episode they called Slanderous in response.
Got it. So that's the backdrop for the source's analysis.
That's the inciting incident they've...
Okay, let's unpack this whole narcissist idea, because, that word gets thrown around constantly.
All the time. Someone seems a bit full of themselves, maybe post too many selfies.
And bam, they're a narcissist.
Oh, right. But our source is digging deeper. They're talking about a more clinical understanding, even while stressing, again, no diagnosis here.
So what are the main types they distinguish? Because they aren't all the same, are they?
No, definitely not. And this distinction is key for our listeners. The source highlights two main. First, there's overt narcissism, also called grandiose.
Okay, grandiose. That sounds big.
It is. It's typically projected outward, almost like a performance, These people often seem very confident, outgoing. They actively seek attention, admiration. The source even uses the word worship.
The classic look at me type.
Pretty much, yeah. Then the flip side is covert or vulnerable narcissism.
Okay, different feel entirely.
Totally. This is more internal. These individuals might seem self-effacing, maybe shy, but inside they're described as hypersensitive, prone to anxiety.
So they might actually avoid the spotlight.
Often, yeah, to protect themselves from feeling rejected or criticized.
That makes sense. So two very different expressions. And for Candace Owens, the source is focusing on which one?
They're definitely focusing on the grandiose type. But crucially, they frame it specifically as malignant narcissism.
Malignant. Okay, what does that add? How is that different from just grandiose?
Right. So grandiose involves that inflated self-image, needing admiration. Malignant narcissism, as the source uses the term, suggests something more severe. It adds traits like a real lack of empathy, a tendency towards exploiting others, even aggression.
So more destructive potential.
That's exactly what the source seems to be implying. And they try to show this through her reported action. What's also really...
Yeah.
According to the source, criticism or rejection doesn't necessarily shut this type down. Sometimes it actually seems to fuel the narcissism.
How so?
It draws more attention. And attention, even negative attention, is what they crave. Feeds the need.
Wow. Okay. So criticism can paradoxically reinforce the behavior. That's counterintuitive.
It really is.
All right. So let's get into the specifics then. What are the key traits of this grandiose, malignant type that the source highlights in relation to Candace Owens?
Okay. The first big one they discuss is an inflated sense of a really profound one.
Meaning, like beyond just garden variety ego.
Oh, yeah. The source points to instances where she reportedly connected huge global events directly to her own influence.
Seriously? Like what?
Like claiming she was the reason President Macron decided to recognize Palestine, or suggesting that this series she did.
The one with the provocative title the source mentions?
That one. Suggesting it was so impactful it actually factored into peace talks between Ukraine and Russia.
Whoa. Oh?
And even implying that Donald Trump, who the source calls the most powerful man on the planet, was like worried about her think piece.
So seeing herself as a major player on the world stage.
Exactly. It ties right into that reported need for admiration. The source quotes the sort of internal monologue they attribute. See me, notice me, I am Candace Qatari Holmes.
Okay, that's quite a claim the source is making about her self-perception. What's next?
Following from that is a strong sense of entitlement.
How does that show up according to the source?
Well, they talk about her early career, how she reportedly burned bridges with people who gave her initial breaks. They name names like Gavin McGinnis, Lauren Loomer, even Kanye West in his content.
Burned bridges. Why?
The source suggests the ultimate goal was always political power, like becoming a senator, maybe even president.
Yeah.
That was the trajectory she felt entitled.
So people were just steps along the way.
That's the implication. And they describe this specific narcissistic wound she supposed experienced.
The wound.
Yeah, from not being considered by Trump for his cabinet. The source implies she felt that was her rightful position.
Interesting perspective from the source on those career moves and relationships.
Okay.
Moving on. The source also talks about empathy, or rather, a lack of it.
A profound lack of empathy, yes. This is a really critical characteristic in their analysis.
And the examples the source gives.
They're quite stark. First, there's the creation of those slanderous think pieces we mentioned. The source claims the intent was to completely ruin people. That series about someone allegedly having a relationship with their son is cited again here.
Okay. What else?
Then the source points to her reported statements about the Holocaust, describing it as denying or belittling, framing it, in the source's words, as denying people's deepest trauma as basically a footnote in history that probably didn't happen.
That's a very heavy claim the sources make.
Extremely. And also, controversially, they mention her accusing Israel of ethnic cleansing during wartime. The source notes that Candace Owens reportedly believes the "from the river to the sea, wipe out Israel completely" movement is, quote, on the right side of history.
Again, these are very serious points being raised by the source material about her views and statements.
Very serious. And presented as evidence for that lack of empathy.
All right. The next trait mentioned is exploitative behavior and using manipulation tactics. How does the source allege this work?
The claim is that she uses her audience almost like a weapon to attack others. People report being ratioed, mobbed online after she makes certain claims about them.
The source gives an example.
Yeah, a specific one where she asserted that Jews, an unnamed organization, and an 85-year-old rabbi were supposedly paying priests and preachers in Bitcoin to slander her.
Paying them in Bitcoin. Where did she say this information came from?
Well, this is where the source gets pointed. It says her sources were herself. Asking rhetorically, what greater source does the narcissist have than themselves?
Implying she just asserted it as fact.
That's the implication. And this ties into the idea of using people as stepping. The source mentions PragerU and the Daily Wire in this context. It even quotes her reported phrasing about the Jews over there at the Daily Wire.
And again, just to stress, we're reporting the language and claims from the source, not endorsing them.
Absolutely critical to state that, yes. Kanye West and Andrew Tate are also mentioned by the source as people she hasn't fully discarded, supposedly because they still have utility for her.
So the source depicts a very calculated, self-serving approach to relationships and platforms.
That's the picture painted, yes.
What about how she interacts with people more directly? Does the source touch on aggression or dominance?
It does. It mentions aggression and hostility, a kind of sourness or vindictiveness that the source claims even former fans started to notice.
Oh.
There's also overconfidence, highlighted by that quote about being willing to bet my entire career on this one scandal, daring it to go all the way to discovery and trial. A real high-stakes gamble presented as confidence.
Right. And dominance.
Yes, interpersonal dominance.
Yeah.
Striving for control and interact, being assertive, sometimes aggressively so. They link this back to discarding people like Gavin and Lauren when they were no longer.
The source even brings up something about asking questions about others' gender identity.
Yeah, it mentions her hypothetically just asking questions about that, noting the irony, source puts it, given questions she herself faced, presented as another tactic.
Okay, that covers a lot of the specific reported behaviors and traits. So, pulling back to the bigger picture, what does this all mean according to the source? What are the potential consequences or underlying dynamic?
Well, the source touches on common difficulties that individuals exhibiting this kind of grandiose narcissism often face.
Let's just.
Significant relationship challenge, for one, which makes sense given the reported lack of empathy, the exploitation, the burning bridge.
Hard to maintain healthy relationships that way.
Exactly. Then potential career hurt, maybe linked to that overconfidence leading to poor decisions, like risking your whole career on a gamble.
The torch my entire career idea.
Right. And ultimately, a risk of social isolation. Difficulty forming genuine bonds can lead to loneliness despite the outward persona.
So those are the potential external consequences. Yeah. But you mentioned the source goes deeper into the possible roots of narcissism.
Yes, and this is really fascinating. The source presents narcissism fundamentally as a shame-based disorder.
Shame-based. That seems contradictory to the outward confidence, the grandiosity.
It does, doesn't it? But the idea is that the outward confidence, the high self-esteem, it's actually a protective veneer, a defense mechanism.
Protecting against what?
Usually, according to this view, it forms in child as a shield against deep feelings of inadequacy or fears of rejection, maybe abandonment.
I see. So the look at me, I'm amazing is covering up a fear of what if you see the real me and reject?
That's the core idea. The source even floats a theory potentially linking it to being raised by grandparents and some needing to create a persona to cope, either the loud worship me type or the opposite, the covert recoil and hide type, both serving as protection.
That's incredibly insightful. It really reframes the whole picture, doesn't it? Thinking about that outward behavior as potentially masking deep vulnerability.
It changes how you might interpret things, for sure.
So for you, our listener, taking this understanding away, how might this perspective on narcissism, as presented by our source, reshape how you perceive public figures, their actions, their motivations?
It adds layers, definitely.
And maybe here's a final thought to leave you with. If narcissism at its root is potentially a defense against profound shame or a fear of abandonment, how does that change our own responsibility as an audience? How should we engage, or maybe choose not to engage, with public figures who display these kinds of traits, knowing what might be underneath?
It's a really complex question. That interplay between the public performance and whatever underlying psychological defenses might be operating.
Definitely something complex to reflect on.